This is my conversation with Joe Benedict, Vice President of Category Management at Quality Bicycle Products, or QBP. QBP is the largest cycling distributor in the United States, serving 5,500 retailers nationwide. Joe shares an inside look at how QBP operates, from their category-based business model to their 4-warehouse logistics network. We dig into what it really takes for brands to succeed in the U.S. market, and why getting into a major distributor like QBP is just the beginning and not the finish line, and how brands need to think about demand generation and channel alignment before expecting results. We also discuss the current state of the aftermarket parts business, a huge part of their business, and challenges the industry faced post-pandemic, and what QBP is seeing as bright spots heading into 2026. This is the Business of Cycling podcast. Joe Benedict, fellow Midwesterner. So happy to be speaking with a fellow Midwesterner and talking about cycling on my podcast. I'm from Nebraska. Where are you from originally?
I grew up in southern Wisconsin, in Milwaukee area. So,
heck yeah.
Yeah, us Midwesterners,
Midwest nice.
Together.
We're very nice. For sure. We are very nice people. So I guess let's just get started. I'm excited to speak with, from my vantage point, someone from the 500-pound gorilla that is QBP. I don't know how you feel about me making that statement, but in terms of distributors, QBP is a big entity in the U.S. for people that don't know that. So maybe just to get started, can you tell us a little bit about quick history of QBP, quick history of how you became part of the organization?
Yeah.
And then maybe we can jump into kind of how QBP operates, the business model.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so we've been in business. I mean, I think for folks your listeners who are part of the bike industry, we will be familiar to those folks if you've participated and you've been, in a professional role as part of the bike industry. For those who don't, we're a bit behind the scenes. For some of the consumer who might be an enthusiast in bikes, you may know our brands or the things that we do, but maybe not the business of QBP. So we are a wholesale cycling distributor. We're based in Minnesota, in the Twin Cities area specifically. We've been in business since 1981, and we were founded by Steve and Mary Flagg. They're still the owners of QBP, so we're a privately held company. And really, we've built a business on supporting bicycle retail, supporting suppliers, bringing product to market in a B2B kind of standpoint. And we've really built our business upon logistical efficiency, helping retailers lower their overall cost of procurement. These are things that are common of wholesale distribution businesses in general, but we make it easy for retailers to do business. And we really started our business focused on our owner, Steve Flagg, really focused on small parts, hard to find, products. He really started this business in creating relationships with Japanese, companies in the early 1980s, sourcing small parts and really allowing the bike shop to more cost effectively kind of service bikes and maintain them. And that really grew over time and expanding the business. But we've really built a reputation, I believe, on, our strength of logistical efficiency, of excellence, of assortment management, really having some of the best relationships with suppliers and brands and in the market, and really serving retailers in a logistically excellent type of way. And we've really built a reputation on that strong support, for the retail business and the retail industry.
So assortment, breadth of assortment, service, by way of logistics, and I guess what would be the third?
Yeah, I mean, part of that logistics would be time in transit, speed to market. And so that's been really important from a retailer perspective. But also when we think about growing the assortment and building, a strong collection and a strong portfolio of products and brands that we offer to support the industry, it's really about the retail network too. So we do service really every single bike shop, varying scale and size within the U.S. market. And that's been really important, not only for the success of our business, but also, for the suppliers that we work with and that we help bring their products and get it into market and support their customers.
It sounds like you guys are really focused in terms of like what you do and what you don't do, in a sense that it sounds like you want to be very good at providing a seamless access to the biggest number of dealers to the most ideal assortment in the most efficient way possible. It sounds like to me. Is that fair?
I think we've really dialed that in over the years. I mean, there was a time, and if we go back to, a bit of where I started working and what I was focused on when I started at QBP, there was a time when we were focused on, or we added to our focus of outdoor products and ski products, and thinking that we've built a really strong business related to bicycle service of retail. And we did have times over the years where we supporting camping and outdoor equipment and ski
Expansion,
support, ski whack, and
line
all of that
expansion.
kind of stuff. And that was good for the moment, but we really have focused our attention towards the bicycle business, which is core to our origins, which is core to our name of quality bicycle products, and really focused on supporting the industry both from a supplier perspective, a customer perspective, and a retail perspective. And
Sure.
that really is our mission and our goal.
Yeah, everybody I talk to in this business, at least anyone that's successful, has a very, very strong sensibility around what they do well, and
Yeah.
they have to limit what they can, the scope of what they can do and what you can do well. I mean, any business.
Certainly.
So it sounds like that in your case, you guys did try and expand, and that maybe at some point you realized, no, let's just keep going deeper and deeper in this range. What's your journey in the company been like? Or you said you grew up in Wisconsin. When did you start working with QBP?
I'm going on my 16th year with QBP at this point. So I started in 2010. I had entry into a sales position and a more retail focused position early on. I did support some of those expansion categories that we talked about in the early days, and then I oriented my work and had opportunity to really focus on the supplier and the product and the assortment management side of the business. And that's really where I've spent a good portion of my time, really since probably 2013, I would say, really focused on this assortment management, portfolio management, supplier, connection and relationship. It's an interesting balance, certainly for me, of oriented towards the manufacturer side of the business, supporting retail and being really checked in with our sales team and what's happening in the field. And at the same time, really having an opinion and direction from a procurement standpoint as well. So thinking about, not only what are we bringing, but what are the expectations from a sales perspective? How do we source it? What are forecast expectations and our inventory support expectations? So, we really serve, and in my role, specifically, really serve at this intersection between really all kind of areas of the business, whether it be supplier side, the sales and the retail component, or the procurement and logistics side of the business, which has been, really, I'd say, great experience for me, and an impactful, type of role within the organization, which has been great.
What's your title right now?
My title is Vice President of Category Management. And for some, that may be, some of your listeners, that may be a familiar, title or a familiar type of role. For others, it may not. But what that really means is we've oriented our business towards a category-based structure. So when we've talked about categories, when we think about tires or drivetrain or other, core components of the cycling business that we serve. And we're running kind of little mini businesses within a broader business of QBP. So we have category-based teams where we have a manager and a lead in charge of that overall business. They're in charge of the portfolio from a supplier perspective, an assortment perspective.
They have a P&L.
They're responsible for the overall results and profitability
of each category.
Of said category.
Okay.
Yep. And then they have core, contributors and stakeholders on their team, which include members of the sales organization, which include, members of the procurement organization, a demand planner to forecast materials, inventory analyst that, cuts and executes POs. So really we're oriented towards kind of a matrixed organization, which is, like I said, kind of a business within a business.
I want to ask you, I'm not trying to put you on the spot here, but we have a lot of European brands that listen to this podcast.
Yeah.
Can you tell me what are the characteristics of a brand, a European brand, to have success in the U.S.?
Well, hmm, yeah, there's a couple of different things. This is true maybe of European brands, but I think it's true of relationships and brands in general. And I think in many ways, it does start with a clear view of, high quality product, brand innovation, product innovation, but more specifically, connection with consumer and the market as a whole too. And we talk about the relationships that we serve and how we find success with our brands. And it comes in terms of um, a mutual partnership towards kind of emphasizing the work. And while QBP can really serve as logistical support, executing across the market, and really providing excellent service, for a brand that looks to kind of expand their role in the United States, there's still an emphasis from kind of European brand that can't be ignored about, building consumer awareness, building, clear consumer demand, and alignment with your partners in the US market about how best to, support your brand, your business across multiple channels. And so when I think about our best relationships, they're ones that we have clear and aligned priorities about what success means. We have clear kind of objectives that we both need to execute to be successful. And we have a clear view of support across multiple channels, whether that be, the IVD
Amazon,
channel, Amazon, e-commerce,
QBP,
D2C, and those should
REI.
be right. And those should be complementary to each other. Those should be designed to support one another and kind of maximize results, right?
Sure. So it sounds like you guys are a channel, but you are, in a sense, you will perform based on what sort of also demand is generated by the brand on the ground. It's like you guys aren't in the demand generation business. You are in the procurement, logistics, and availability business. Like you're going to put these products and make them available, but the brand has to have some sort of plan and some tactics on how to get people to ask for these products. Is that a fair statement?
I think that's fair. I mean, I think there is a belief when we have sometimes relationships with new brands that are looking to come to market that if they can just get in with QBP, and
It's all
QBP
good.
serves 5,500 retailers in the US market, that if they can just get in with QBP, all the problems will be solved, right? And the business will grow and they'll be successful and all these things.
I
And
think that's a
the support is,
misconception. That's a
yeah,
misconception with most distributors also. I think
for
not just
sure.
QBP.
Yeah. And the reality is we can really help maximize and emphasize kind of brand performance, logistics, retail support, and support across multiple channels if the brand chooses to participate there. But it still requires intentionality from the brand themselves about how are you making connections with the consumer,
Demand creation,
right?
demand
How are you
creation.
making, yeah, exactly. How are you making connections with the consumer? How do they know of your brand? And what are you known for? And making sure that those activities are in support. And QBP's work is in support of, the brand activities and the demand generation that the brand is looking to undertake. So it really requires a partnership based approach
I
and a
get it.
complementary approach across really two businesses that are looking to kind of grow sales. And the reality is, we talk about QVP's business. We've got 300 plus suppliers we work with and brands we distribute in the market. We have 45,000 materials that we make available, that we, add to the portfolio, that we forecast, that we own inventory and support inventory for. And so dependent on the brand, there are different approaches that we may take. We have relationships of brands and products that are sold by other distributors. They're maybe sold by the brand themselves because they have a direct presence in the US market. They maybe have a Amazon or a direct to
Sure.
consumer kind of standpoint. So we may be one avenue in which a brand is going to market. We have exclusive relationships where QBP is the sole provider and the sole solution for a product or a brand in the US or the North American market. So that's true of a brand like Continental. That's true of a brand like Muck-Off here in 2026. We're exclusive with Muck-Off for the 2026 season. Met, Seedy, those are brands that are only available in the US market
Through
from
QBP.
QBP,
Okay.
right? And then we have other brands like our supportive e-bike. So this kind of supports the small part business and repair business, but We are the service provider for Bosch in the US market. We do warranty and service work for Fazua and TQ and Mala. So we are operating in different ways, depending on kind of the needs and the support that brand has. But we have different kinds of relationships that require a different kind of execution in some ways from QBP.
No, I totally get it. And so, in order to have a successful relationship with the supplier, there needs to be, like with the brands, there needs to be clear intentionality, like you said, in the execution and in the demand generation. Demand generation in the U.S. is very expensive compared to Europe. So I think from what you're telling me, if I can read between the lines, it sounds like there can be some misaligned expectations at times. How do you go about making sure that that doesn't happen?
I mean, it really starts in terms of the setup from the beginning, with brands that we have. So do we have clear understanding of kind of core responsibilities between, QBP as a, exclusive distribution partner, the brand themselves, and the role of different businesses within the market? Do we have clear kind of expectations around kind of goals and objectives that the brand and QBP sees possible for the US or the North American market at large?
This happens
And
before
that's
before
really
you even start.
that's really important from the get-go, especially as we talk about a brand that maybe isn't based in the US market that needs more additional support from QBP than they can do on their own.
Sure.
And then it requires, I think, and this is true of all brands, but we talked about this multi-channel or this omni-channel approach, and that we have kind of clear understanding of how we're executing or a brand
each
is
one of these
executing
channels, yeah.
across each channels.
Yeah.
And, you're doing a lot of work to, build consumer trust. You're doing a lot of work to build retail trust. And I think having a multi-channel approach is incredibly important in this day and age. Like,
Sure,
brands
because customers,
they have to be doing that.
yeah, customers spend their time in different places.
But knowing that you have partners that are looking to invest and support your brand in different ways, that the activities that are taking place across these different channels have to be in support and complementary in nature to each other. And without that, it erodes trust either from the retail base or the consumer, side of the business. And in some cases, that is where there's misalignment between kind of QBP and brands that we've carried in the past. Is just we don't have a clear understanding of all the activities that are going to be taking place across, different channels, or they're not in support of each other, or, we have a clear kind of position on how we support retail, but maybe there are promotions, there are things that are happening in the consumer channel that are just unknown or off cycle, or, that creates challenges across the network. So
just
I think
to
those
kind
are
of
really important aspects.
dive into the channel management, I think this is a really interesting topic. So I presume that if we're going to break down channels, we're going to break them down into IBD, online specialists, and then marketplaces. Would those can we call those the three main channels?
I mean, if we talk about, so let me talk a little bit about who we serve, because I think that's an important kind of piece of the business overall. As I mentioned, we serve around 5,500 customers in the US US market. That's really the kind of totality of the retail network for cycling in the US. And that includes small independent retailers, maybe one chain, one store, two store type of businesses that exist in cities and communities all across the country. That includes, regional chains that are really important in distinct, regional areas across the US. So think about, an Eric's based in the Midwest, or a Conti's out east, or, Mike's Bikes. These are retailers with, maybe 15, kind of 20 locations. It includes
chains,
national retailers, right?
Trek,
like an REI,
Specialized.
which that have kind of a broad-based kind of national type of, physical brick and mortar location type of network. It includes, predominantly, but still having some sort of brick and mortar support online and e-commerce based retailers. So think of a Backcountry, or, a Jensen, or, Universal Cycles. And so, we have all these different channels that are retail based. And even within that, we have single store IBDs that I think is really important, that are also undertaking their own e-commerce
Yeah.
kind of activities
Right.
to create awareness to their local shop, to speak to their kind of localized customers or expand, their customer base, to show, the types of products and brands that they support, provide opportunity for buy online, pick up in store. Like
Yep.
I think it's really important that we have all of these retailers that are finding and supporting the consumer, whoever, how large or how focused that may be, but supporting the consumer kind of within their given market. And so
And
that's an
Amazon,
important, and Amazon
retailers,
as well.
the
Yeah.
retailers are really really adept at Amazon. I've seen where they connect their warehouse to an Amazon storefront, and so if a customer is looking for a certain size or a certain color, and then they have it in stock, they can then send it with their Amazon account. I've seen
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah, I mean, we have, and that's one way that we have, aligned kind of our business. And we haven't talked about this, but in addition to distributing other brands, we have our own proprietary and in-house, product as well. So we have, two bike brands that are developed in-house, and then we also have P&A business and a number of parts and accessories brands that are proprietary to QBP, that are kind of designed, engineered, all of that by QBP. And we've used retailers to support, across channels, both in brick and mortar and online, and in some cases via Amazon as well. So
Sure.
we've utilized those retailers who have the emphasis and have the, logistical sophistication and support mechanisms in place to utilize that channel as well.
Do you guys have geographic focus?
I mean, certainly for us, we have a sales team that is focused geographically in different regions. We have, a variety of structures, from a customer service, inside sales team, outside sales team, from a geographical perspective. Our business has, within the U.S., 4 warehouses. So we have a facility in Minnesota where we're headquartered. We have a facility in Colorado. We have a warehouse in the Reno area, really supporting the West Coast. And we have a facility in Pennsylvania as well, supporting really the East Coast retailers. So, our goal over time has really been strong logistical and customer,
Sure.
support, mechanisms. And time in transit's really important from a retail perspective. And if you think of service as an outcome, which is really important from a brick and mortar IBD perspective,
Yeah.
there are way too many parts and way too many configurations possible for a retailer to stock all of those things at any
Sure.
given time, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
so, utilizing QBP as a just-in-time inventory provider, that's critical, and that's really what we've done since the get-go. But that's really how we've positioned ourselves, is making sure that retailers can rely upon a business like QBP to turn, service business that they have, service orders that they have, kind of repair and effectively manage their inventory in a way that ensures they can turn it, they can get, return on investment from it, that they can be profitable with their
Their
business as a
customers,
whole.
yeah, with their
So,
customer base. Absolutely.
yep,
Can you tell me, I know this is going to be another really open and broad question,
sure.
but can you speak to the American, speak to some top kind of some characteristics of the American consumer? Just because I have such a big audience across the globe, so only about 25% of my audience is in the US. Can you tell me a little bit about your experience t of the American consumer cyclists? I know, like I said, I know this is a really broad question, but can we try and understand a little more? Can you color what you've learned about the American consumer in the last 16 years that you've been at QBP?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's pretty apparent, and I think it's clear to a lot of folks that are kind of participating and working in the industry in the U.S. market, that the U.S. consumer related to cycling continues to be highly focused on a recreation, type of a type of business. So
Activity?
type of activity, right? And whether that be, traditional road or gravel, which is obviously an incredibly important, trend within the space, mountain bike, all the different kind of subcategories of cycling, the average consumer tends to be pretty recreational focused in the US. And I think there's a number of different reasons for that. I mean, certainly the size and scale of the US market relative to maybe other markets across the globe is one of them. the infrastructure in general in the US outside of
Colorado.
Portland and Colorado and Minneapolis and other kind of major metropolitan areas. In many cases, the infrastructure just isn't as convenient, safe, and or elaborate maybe as it needs to be to promote cycling as a more transportation kind of oriented activity, which is certainly what we see in other markets. Specifically in Europe, we see a lot of transportation based cycling that kind of comes naturally, I think, to folks, or kind of is part of their just historical experience.
There's transportation, and
developing.
there's also semi-competitive, like not competitive, but like, being in Italy, there's a lot of elevation changes, which can make for a lot more interesting mountain biking and road biking, and gravel bike. Whereas in the US, it's generally, there's less of that, in areas like the Midwest where it's pretty flat. So it sounds to me like you're saying that the intensity and the of the activities tends to be more recreational, but because of the infrastructure and because of the geographic nature of the country, in a certain sense.
Yeah, I think that's true. And by recreation, I just mean cycling as a sport versus cycling as a daily activity or mode of transportation. Certainly, it skews towards that more cycling as a sport, and a recreational pastime more than an everyday occurrence for most Americans and most consumers
Okay.
in the U.S. market. But certainly we have emphasis in terms of mountain bike as a important and kind of growing consumer area of the business, and through youth programming, which we've seen develop in many ways across the country, NICA and other related programs. We are seeing good participation in racing, in activity, and in general, like of activities of this nature. But I think it's important to also recognize that from a consumer perspective, and maybe a persona perspective, a lot of cyclists are multi-sport, and that
Sure.
includes multi-discipline within a cycling realm. Mountain bike one day, gravel cycle, the gravel riding the next day, and multi-sport in regards to there are other activities, skiing and hiking and paddling, and that is common amongst the U.S. population.
So with regards to, I know that COVID happened, overstocks galore. Things sort of have normalized over probably the last 2 years. I know that from what the people that I speak with, the OEM business, so like the business of suppliers supplying complete bikes from as at a at a production standpoint, has slowed because of the slowing of the demand for complete bikes because of overstocks of the complete bikes. But the aftermarket products, especially last year, have been, from my anecdotal conversations, has been strong. Where are you guys at in terms of business and in terms of kind of the overall health of the market at this moment? What are you seeing?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's interesting. I mean, I think everybody, all manufacturers, whether you're in complete bikes or parts and accessories, retail based, wholesale, distributors, had challenges kind of coming out of the pandemic. And as you mentioned, we had massive gluts of inventory across all markets, in Europe and in the US, et cetera. And really that required a lot of kind of work and diligence, I think, from partners, across the market to right size that and kind of orient that towards the future. Consumer demand, as you mentioned, has just been softer than what we experienced, certainly during the pandemic, but even lags a little bit of 2019 or pre-pandemic levels to some degree. And so that's made it challenging on a lot of partners. In 2025, certainly we've seen the aftermarket and the parts and accessories business rebound, which I think is a reflection of back of house, service and repair, but also parts in general.
Mm-hmm.
And I think inventory at retail is in the IBD channel is in a much healthier position. And I think consumers, may have upgraded to a bike throughout the pandemic, bought a bike, maybe two bikes, and they're still in a mindset of upgrade, repair, kind of that kind of aspect of their needs from a product perspective. So certainly I believe, parts and accessories globally is in a better position than the
I think
complete bike market.
it's a good sign that you guys are having the event. It's a good sign that brands are willing to invest in an event like this. I think it just kind of signals positivity, which we've been, starving for over the last few years.
And for us, really what that means is we need to control to some extent our own destiny, where we want this industry to go, where we want our business to go, and encouraging both suppliers and the retail base to collaborate and work together to say, this is ours to kind of advance forward. And we do that by connection across, this partnership, across, the industry, and working together. And that's really the theme when we look at 2026 is let's take the lane, let's take control of our own business and our own future, and work together to solve problems that exist kind of within our market, within our areas of emphasis and specialization. So we are seeing parts and accessories as a more stable business, and some of that is cyclical, like that's not forever, but that will be a point of emphasis, I think, from a retail perspective, and certainly from what we see within the industry, of a bright spot that we'll continue to build upon.
Well, Joe, I've got one more question. I really appreciate you taking the time today. This has been cool. You're right. QBP is has sort of been behind the curtain for years and years, from my experience. And I'll admit, like I've spoken with brands that thought, oh, if I can just get into QBP, if I can just get in there, everything's going to be fine. And that's not the case. And I guess if you can just maybe talk to those brands that want to come to America. And I've written about this before, about the challenges of brands coming to America. Can you just maybe speak a moment about, what they need to be ready for, what these brands need to be expecting when they do come to the US and partner up with a distributor like QBP? Like what sort of homework do they need to be doing?
I think from a European brand perspective or an international brand perspective, there's got to be a clear view on kind of priorities and outcomes, or things that the brand wants to emphasize and focus on from the beginning. There's also got to be
SKUs, categories, specific products.
SKUs, categories, a specific segment of the market, a specific area where
Price
they have
point.
clear differentiation. I mean, I think you've talked about that with other folks that you've had on the podcast in the past, but it's about really, where are you unique? Where are you differentiated?
Where are you best
to the competition? Yeah, where are you best? And having a clear view on where are the areas where you can see success within the U.S. market, within the U.S. retailer that is unique to you. And I think there is a belief that if we can just get to the U.S., there's 5,500 retailers.
Exactly.
Get in a national distributor,
fine.
business is going to happen. Everybody's going to adopt it. It's going to take over. And the reality is, generating demand, building consumer awareness, especially if you've not been in the U.S. market before, it takes time. It really does. And even with companies that are based in the U.S., maybe they're a growing and evolving brand, like it takes time to build the execution, the awareness, and really broaden kind of the network of business. So I think some clear expectations, or realistic expectations from the get-go, is really important. And that doesn't have to be everything all at once. And that doesn't have to be, it's not every customer, or every retailer all at once. It can't be. And so I think having those expectations of focus, of specific areas that the brand can work and build success from, that's a really important starting point.
I think that's,
as they think about the US.
That's a great kind of way to close the conversation, because like I said, for you guys to be successful and for brands to be successful, there needs to be clear expectations, and there needs to be a common shared alignment on who's doing what and how. Well, thank you so much for taking the time, and stay safe out there.
Excellent. Thanks, Wyatt. This has been fantastic. Appreciate it.
Take care.